The names in the game don't get much bigger than Bailey Smith. At the moment, he's in the sights of the AFL. Tell us about it.
So the AFL's message to Bailey Smith is very clear today. Pull your head in, Bailey. You are in the gun right now. So, of course, the issue is him referencing nose beers, cocaine, in an Instagram post, clapping back at someone. But he's left with a really strong message from the AFL today. If this happens again, don't cry poor. Don't say I wasn't aware of it. Andrew Dillon, very strong. The league has spoken to both Bailey and also the Cats. He said, I absolutely don't condone it. Drug use is a serious thing and should not be joked about. If he had his time again, I'm not sure he'd do it. The AFLPA boss, Paul Marsh, says that, look, it's in his character. It was a tongue-in-cheek thing. He's got a lot of personality in his game, but it was probably misplaced. So once again, Smith is the centre of attention. Once again, Chris Scott and Andrew Mackie and Steve Hocking have to deal with their star player midweek. Corbin, what do you make of it all?
I'm sure that what we're hearing from Geelong publicly is different to how they're treating Bailey Smith internally. So I think so far the way they've treated it publicly is completely consistent with the way that they've treated a lot of their players, particularly under Chris Scott's tenure. The difference with Bailey Smith is he's in a very different position than a lot of those other guys. So many senior teammates, even players like Tyson Stengel and Jack Stephen that have come in over the years that have had their troubles. Often they're in their last stop in the footy system, and it's either make it here or basically you're no longer an AFL player. That's not Bailey Smith's circumstance, though. So it's another interesting juggling act for the Cats. And I know both Steve Hocking and Chris Scott have spoken about the fact that it's a good challenge for them as CEO and coach and as a club to basically try and work their way through this. And there's going to be a couple of bumpy moments, as there has been early on. And yet the performance on the field has been first class. He's arguably the Brownlow medal leader, so they're certainly getting the best out of him on field. I'm sure if they can just iron out a few of those off-field errors.
Normally, I'd say 25 years in the media, we build them up and we rip them down. You know, that you should be aware of this, Bailey, that I tell you what, on the flip side here, you're going to get smashed. Part of me thinks, though, that this is not his kryptonite, this attention. This is his superpower. Like, he absolutely loves this stuff, and this is the reason that he's playing so well. He knows every week, even with a 5-day break, even with a dodgy shin, he needed to go out and dominate the Western Bulldogs. And so, yes, Chris Scott is probably saying, OK, we'll counsel our player. But he might well be saying, hey, I'll run cover for you. You just keep doing exactly what you're doing. Whatever you are doing right now, keep doing it because it is working.
I mean, they've put him on watch, and I think it comes down to, doesn't it? He's just got to be more aware in these situations because we all know now every set of eyes, particularly in the media, is going to be on that comments section. I mean, he's got form in this area, as we know. He's faced a conduct unbecoming charge previously. And I just think they're really going to come down on him, you would imagine, if this does happen again, because, you know, they've got an illicit drugs policy in the works, all of these things to factor in. And unfortunately for Bailey, it's just not on in this regard. The Cats are in the sights of the AFL in another sense, Ralphie, when it comes to potentially a fine for a few salary cap issues. What's the latest there?
So there are fines and then there are Kurt Tippett-style fines where your player gets done for 10 weeks or 11 weeks. This is very much at the first end of the minor end of the scale. And so there are some issues that the third-party audit has looked into, of course, Port Adelaide as well. I think they're at the minor end of the scale. They're being compared to, say, Brisbane, $10,000 fine of 7 or 8 years ago. Certainly it's in regard to lodgement. I understand the Twitter conspirators absolutely having a field day. Bailey has got a deal which was brokered when he was at the top of his game at the Western Bulldogs. It has not altered in any way. Those close to him would say it has had nothing to do with him moving down there. And so I can say that. The Twitter fans will not believe it anyway, but at some stage, Geelong will get a $10,000 or $20,000 fine. They will say move along, and everyone else will have a field day by saying this is the way they have built a premiership list. You know, that's just the way of the world.
Now, Ralphie, the Injury and Hardship Fund, you've revealed a short time ago just what this is going to look like. You've spoken with AFL CEO Andrew Dillon today and AFLPA boss Paul Marsh. How is this going to look is probably the first thing, and who is this actually going to help? This
is a great day. Now, it probably could have come 2 or 3 years earlier, but footy's broken generation finally got looked after today. So it's a $54 million fund that the players take out of their own pockets as part of the CBA deal, and they hand on to the past players. So players who exit the game now can access a $500,000 career-ending payout, and the new deal is a $600,000 lump sum to repair lives. So serious, significant injuries there. So who does it help? The likes of Patrick Bynes, who got a neck injury, never played a game with West Coast, has not worked a day in his life since then. He's not able to do it given so many surgeries. Now, so much talk about Paul Seedsman, the ex-Pie and Crow, who, of course, spoke eloquently this week about his concussion battle. Brad Shepherd, Dan Venables, Chad Rintoul, Max Rourke, Liam Picken, all those blokes, some of them in the concussion class action. So if an ex-player can prove their working capacity is impacted by more than 40%, that's the deal. Well, they're eligible for it. So $54 million is a big chunk of change. It won't be enough. Some will want more. But Corbin, at least, you know, the trail of lives that have been destroyed, that money will be significant.
No doubt. And it's not going away. I think there's been over 20 players over the last couple of years that have been retired after the concussion panel basically met to deem that they couldn't continue to play footy. So that there are going to be more and more players, unfortunately, going forward that are going to find themselves in this position. And it's also not an invention of today's footy either. I think a lot of people out there probably thinking, oh, we didn't hear about this back in the day. Well, there were people out there with plenty of struggles, and they may have got deemed to have other issues later in life or whatever that were caused by incidents like this. So the fact that there are, there is help out there for certain players nowadays that experience this kind of trauma on the field is, I think we all agree, is a good thing and something that the industry can do and is doing, which, is a big tick. Yep,
so you've got all the details on that in tomorrow's paper. Paul Seedsman, you mentioned his name there, the way he spoke on the weekend, 40% impact on his life. He's talking about how it feels like he's almost had a stroke. He's bedridden for weeks. So you'd have to think he's potentially going to be one of the first players in line for maybe a payment along those lines. Those entering the game, Ralphie, we've got a whole new swag this time tomorrow night with the mid-season draft happening. We've heard so much about Tom McCarthy to the Eagles, and typically when it comes to the mid-season draft, we sit here, 24, 36 hours out from it happening. We know sort of who's going where, but there's a lovely almost shroud of secrecy around it. We're sort of back to the old days of, a little bit of smoke and shadows, as it were. I
love the smoke and shadows behind the mirrors, as Travis Spoke would say. The one we do know, speaking of Tom McCarthy, VFL halfback flanker. So 6 months ago, stacking shelves at Woolworths in the dairy department, the assistant manager, not the manager. He'll be the #1 pick at West Coast. Now, I spoke to him on Sunday. Effectively confirmed that Matty Clark, the list manager, had given him the tick-off. So Jake Waterman is out for the year now with a serious shoulder injury. So there are now 2 West Coast picks. This is the one I love. Archie May. Pie's tragic. Julie, his mum, is the partner of Dermot Burton, who claims all the credit, of course. Collingwood has told him they love him. 198cm forward. They love him so much they stepped him out of the waffle last week. They love him so much they said, put an 18-month contract on your head, a bit like John Newcombe. Can we just sneak you through under the cover of darkness? But there are 8 or 9 clubs ahead of them. Essendon interviewed him today. So could Essendon, the Anzac rival, steal that player? They have not spoken to him before. North Melbourne keeping their cards so close to their chest. Publicly lukewarm. They have chosen who they want. They've got 3 players on their draft board. They want to take someone at pick 9 as well. Rivals say they will take him. Does May get through? The Pies tragic. Get to Collingwood. Maybe play in coming weeks. A lot of intrigue. Yeah. Essendon, of course, is the club that doesn't like the mid-season draft. They absolutely need it. What are they going to do?
Well, they do have some good recent history too. They picked Massimo D'Ambrosio and Sam Durham through the mid-season draft. They're probably, along with Marlon Pickett and John Newcombe and John Noble, have been more of the success stories. You mentioned meeting with players and along Archie May, obviously involved as part of that. I can tell you they met with Liam McMahon today. Okay. So Liam McMahon is a 197, 198 forward. He is the second leading goal scorer in the VFL at the moment, playing for Carlton, but has previously spent time on an AFL list with the Magpies. So spent 2 years there, back in the VFL, and actually won the best and fairest at Carlton last year, met with the Bombers today. So as much as he's a goal kicker, and you probably think, oh, well, the Bombers are looking for defenders and rucks, there is the option that he played as a swingman when he was younger, and even though he's been tearing it up forward in the VFL, there's every chance that if he ends up on an AFL list, maybe the Bombers say, you know what, let's throw him down back and see how he goes as a swingman for us. So he could fit a need still for the Bombers, and one that they certainly have their eye on and spoke to today.
It might serve him well to get a sneaky little Jetstar flight or something up to Queensland tomorrow morning. Position himself beautifully to maybe play on Thursday night, as Brad Scott forecast. Ralphie, a couple of familiar names were potentially in the mix. Brandon Parfitt, Braden Crosley, both guys we've seen at the top level before. What about them?
Parfitt looks a no at this stage, and it also looks like Braden Crosley just hasn't got the fitness. Of course, he trialled at the Western Bulldogs, but was seen to be a long way off. So for Essendon, there's a couple of young ruckmen in Claremont's Oliver Eastland and also East Fremantle's Lockie Blackiston. They seem to be ahead of him. Of course, they've got a couple of young rucks themselves, Essendon, so I think these are the project ruckmen. Gold Coast can clear 2 list spots. Himmelberg and Charlie Ballard out for the year. So there's a young kid from Dingley called Caleb Lewis. Now, he met with Damien Hardwick on Sunday. He's been given the tick off. He'll be at training on Thursday. And also ex-Saints defender Oscar Adams. So they're the 2 that they're really keen to secure. The Dogs have cleared a spot. Cody Waitman is now out for the year. There's a bit of mystery about them. Brandon Parfitt, as I said, is a no. And Crossley, it's just unfortunate. I think the Dogs said to him, go away and get fit. He's still a very dominant ruckman, but you just need to be so elite these days. And Carlton's the other one. Norwood small forward, Jacob Newton. So plenty of names. They're not. It's not a super draft in terms of the mid-season. A couple of clubs there don't necessarily rate it, but someone's going to pluck someone who's going to play very quickly, maybe as early as Thursday, and maybe someone could be the next Marlon Pickett.
So as many as 18 picks and the Bombers have 4. I must admit, it's a great story for Archer May, but in working some games with Dermot for Fox Footy, the WAFL is going to lose a fan. I feel like every week Dermot's been giving us an update on how Archie's been going to the WAFL, and if all of a sudden he ends up on a list on this side of the country, they're going to have one less viewer, unfortunately, and the great 5-time day, 5-time night premiership player.